The handcuffs clicked shut around wrists that had once held together a soldier's shattered femur under mortar fire. Claire Whitmore didn't flinch, didn't plead, didn't shout. She just stood there in wrinkled scrubs, flanked by two officers outside her own apartment door, while neighbors filmed from cracked doorways, and a woman in yoga pants whispered into her phone like she'd just witnessed a drug bust. What none of them knew, what the rookie cop with his hand on her shoulder couldn't possibly understand, was that Claire had spent 18 months in Kandahar, keeping Marines alive with nothing but gauze, morphine, and hands steadier than most surgeons. She'd learned a long time ago that panic was a luxury. And right now, watching Officer Derek Novak's smug expression as he radioed dispatch, she wasn't panicking. She was calculating. If you want to see how a woman they underestimated turned their world upside down, stay with me until the end. Drop a like. Leave a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Because what happens next? They never saw it coming. The double shift at Redwood General had been brutal. A 3-car pileup on Route 9, 2 cardiac arrests back-to-back, and a kid who'd swallowed half a bottle of Tylenol while his parents screamed at each other in the waiting room. Claire's feet ached, her scrubs smelled like antiseptic and sweat, and all she wanted was to peel off her shoes, microwave leftover pasta, and collapse on her couch. She'd worked in worse conditions, way worse. But exhaustion didn't care about your resume. The apartment building on Maple Street was quiet when she pulled into the lot. Just the hum of the streetlights and the distant bark of someone's dog. 3rd floor, Unit 3C, same place she'd lived for 4 years. She grabbed her bag from the passenger seat, locked the car, and headed for the entrance. That's when she noticed the woman. Yoga pants, oversized sunglasses. Even though it was past 9, blonde hair pulled into a ponytail so tight it looked painful. She was standing near the mailboxes, phone pressed to her ear, eyes locked on Claire. Claire didn't recognize her. New tenant, maybe. The building had been cycling through renters lately, young professionals who stayed 6 months before moving somewhere trendier. She swiped her keycard at the entrance. The lock buzzed. She stepped inside. Behind her, the woman's voice rose slightly. "Yeah, I'm serious. She just went in." Claire paused at the elevator, finger hovering over the call button. Something about the tone felt off. Not panicked, exactly. More performative, like someone narrating a scene they wanted to sound dramatic. She shook it off. Pressed the button. The elevator groaned to life. By the time she reached the 3rd floor, she'd already forgotten about it. Her apartment was at the end of the hallway, past the faded landscape paintings and the fire extinguisher that hadn't been inspected since 2019. She fished her keys from her scrub pocket, juggling her bag and the half-empty coffee cup she'd been carrying since lunch. The key slid into the lock. "Excuse me, ma'am. Step away from the door." Claire froze. 2 officers stood at the end of the hallway, one older, gray at the temples, hand resting casually on his belt. The other younger, mid-20s maybe, with a buzz cut and the kind of rigid posture that screamed academy graduate. His name tag read Novak. "Can I help you?" Claire kept her voice even, the same tone she used when patients got combative in the ER. Novak stepped forward. "We got a call about a possible break-in. Someone saw you entering the building without a key." Claire blinked. "Without a key?" "That's correct." She held up her key card, still clipped to her scrub pocket. "This is my key card. I've lived here for 4 years." The older officer, his tag said Martinez, glanced at Novak, then back at Claire. "Do you have ID?" "Of course." She reached for her bag. Slowly. Her jaw tightened, but she moved deliberately, pulling out her wallet and handing over her driver's license. Martinez took it, studied it under the hallway light. "Says here you live at 428 Maple Street, Unit 3C. "That's this building, this unit." Claire gestured to the door behind her. "I just finished a shift at Redwood General. I'm an ER nurse. You can call the hospital if you want." Novak crossed his arms. "Anyone can wear scrubs. Anyone can also check a driver's license against an apartment lease." Claire's voice stayed calm, but something cold slipped into it. Something that came from 18 months of dealing with people who thought authority meant they didn't have to think. Martinez handed back her license. "Look, we're just responding to a call. If you live here, you've got nothing to worry about." "Then we're done here." She turned back to her door. "Not yet." Novak moved closer. "We need to verify you actually live here. How do we know you didn't steal that key card?" Claire turned slowly. "You want to verify? Fine. My lease is inside, my mail's in the box downstairs, my name's on the utility bills, pick one. Or you could just cooperate. I am cooperating. I showed you my ID. I showed you my key. I told you where I work. What else do you want? Novak's hand drifted toward his cuffs. I want you to stop being difficult. A door opened down this hall. Mrs. Kapoor, 70-something, cardigan buttoned to her throat, peeked out. Officers, is there a problem? Ma'am, please go back inside. That's Claire. She lives here. Has for years. What's going on? Novak didn't even look at her. Ma'am? I won't ask again. Mrs. Kapoor's door clicked shut, but Claire could see her silhouette through the peephole. Martinez sighed. Look, Whitmore, just let us verify the apartment and we'll be out of your hair. I'm not letting anyone into my home without a warrant. We don't need a warrant if we have probable cause. Probable cause for what? Walking into my own building? Novak stepped closer, voice dropping. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. Claire didn't move. You're the ones who showed up at my door. His hand closed around her wrist. Turn around. Are you serious? Turn around. Martinez put a hand on Novak's shoulder. Hey, She's refusing to cooperate. That's obstruction. Claire's pulse kicked up, but her face stayed blank. She'd been in tighter spots than this. Way tighter. The trick was not to give them anything. No fear, no anger, nothing they could use. She turned around. The cuffs clicked shut. This is insane, she said quietly. You should have just answered our questions. Mrs. Kapoor's door opened again. You're arresting her? For what? Ma'am, final warning. Another door opened. Then another. A guy in a Celtics jersey, a younger woman with a toddler on her hip, all of them staring. She lives here, the guy said. I've seen her 100 times. Novak ignored him, guiding Claire toward the elevator. She didn't resist, didn't pull away, didn't raise her voice. She just walked, spine straight, eyes forward. But as they passed Martinez, she spoke, just loud enough for both officers to hear. You're going to regret this, Novak snorted. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. The elevator doors closed. Well, the precinct smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Claire sat in a holding area, not a cell technically, but close enough. Metal bench, flickering fluorescent light, a camera in the corner with a blinking red dot. They'd taken her bag, her phone, her keys, left her in the scrubs and the cheap sneakers she wore because 12-hour shifts destroyed anything nicer. A female officer had processed her. Fingerprints, photo, the usual routine. She'd been polite, almost apologetic, but she didn't ask questions. Just did her job and left. Claire leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. This wasn't her first time dealing with people who saw what they wanted to see. In Kandahar, it had been officers who assumed she couldn't handle a field amputation because she looked too young. In nursing school, it had been professors who thought she was only there because of some military quota. And now, apparently, it was cops who couldn't reconcile black woman in scrubs with lives in a decent building. She'd learned a long time ago that explaining didn't help. People believed what they wanted. The only thing that changed minds was proof. And she had plenty of that. The door opened. A man in plain clothes stepped in, late 40s, graying beard, detective's shield clipped to his belt. He held a folder. Ms. Whitmore, I'm Detective Ruiz. Sorry about the wait. Claire opened her eyes. Am I under arrest? Not yet. We're still sorting things out. Sorting what out? I showed them my ID, my key card. I told them where I work. Ruiz sat down across from her, opening the folder. Officer Novak says you were uncooperative. I asked why he needed to search my apartment. He says you refused to verify your residency. I verified it 3 times. He just didn't like my answers. Ruiz scanned the report, frown deepening. It says here the caller reported someone using a stolen keycard to enter the building. Did the caller give a description? Woman in scrubs, mid-30s, African American. Claire's laugh was dry. So every black woman in scrubs is a suspect now? Ruiz didn't answer. He flipped a page and his expression shifted, just slightly, but enough for Claire to notice. What? She asked. You're a nurse at Redwood General? I told Novak that. It also says here you're former military. Claire's eyes narrowed. Is that a problem? No, I'm just trying to understand the situation. The situation is simple. I came home from work. Someone called the cops because they didn't think I looked like I belonged. And now I'm sitting in a holding room because Officer Novak decided to escalate instead of think. Ruiz closed the folder. Look, I'll make some calls. If everything checks out, it will. Then we'll get you out of here. He stood, heading for the door. Detective, he paused. How many calls does Redwood General get from this precinct every week? Ruiz hesitated. I don't know. A few, maybe. Try a dozen. Overdoses, assaults, GSWs. I've stitched up half your officers at some point. You might want to check if any of them remember me before this gets worse. Ruiz left without answering. Claire leaned back again, staring at the ceiling. An hour passed, then another. The fluorescent light buzzed like a trapped wasp. Claire's shift had started at 6 that morning. It was past 11 now, 17 hours. Her back ached, her head throbbed, and somewhere across town her leftover pasta was still sitting in the fridge. She wondered if Mrs. Kapoor had called the hospital. Probably. The woman was a retired paralegal. She knew how these things worked. The door opened again. This time it was a uniformed sergeant, older than Ruiz, with the kind of deep-set frown that looked permanent. Miss Whitmore. Claire sat up. I'm Sergeant Brennan. I've been reviewing your case. And? He sat down heavily, like the chair was the only thing keeping him upright. We contacted Redwood General, confirmed your employment, spoke to your supervisor, Dr. Lena Ortiz. She vouched for you. Good. We also pulled your lease, utilities. Everything checks out. Claire waited. Officer Novak acted outside protocol. The arrest was unwarranted. So I'm free to go. Brennan hesitated. There's something else. What? He opened a different folder, thicker this time, with a military seal on the cover. Claire's stomach dropped. You were deployed to Afghanistan. 2 tours. Combat medic, attached to the 3rd Marine Division. That's not a secret. You received a commendation medal, Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. Claire's jaw tightened. Is there a point to this? Brennan looked up, and for the first time she saw something other than bureaucratic exhaustion in his face. Respect. Maybe. Or fear. Ms. Whitmore, I'm very sorry for what happened tonight. We'll be conducting a full internal review. I don't want an apology. I want accountability. You'll get it, will I? Or is this the part where you tell me mistakes were made and everyone moves on? Brennan stood. You're free to go. Your belongings are at the front desk. He walked out, leaving the folder on the table. Claire stared at it. She hadn't opened a military file in years. Hadn't wanted to. Those 18 months in Kandahar weren't something she talked about. Not with coworkers, not with friends, not with anyone who hadn't been there. But now it was out. On a desk. In a police report. Because some rookie cop couldn't imagine that a tired woman in scrubs might actually belong where she said she did. She grabbed the folder, flipped it shut, and walked out. The precinct lobby was nearly empty, just a drunk asleep on a bench and a bored officer scrolling through his phone. Claire collected her bag, her keys, her phone. 14 missed calls, 6 voicemails. She stepped outside into the cool night air. A car pulled up to the curb, a sleek black sedan with government plates. The back door opened. A man stepped out. 50s maybe. Short gray hair, suit that cost more than Claire's rent. He had the kind of calm authority that didn't need to announce itself. Miss Whitmore. Claire stopped. My name is Colonel David Trent. I work with the Department of Defense, Veteran Liaison Office. Claire's grip tightened on her bag. How did you know I was here? Your name flagged in the system. Automatic alert for anyone with your service record. Great, so now I'm being tracked. Trent's expression didn't change. You're not being tracked. You're being protected. There's a difference. I don't need protection. Maybe not. But you do need to know what's about to happen. Claire crossed her arms. Which is? Officer Novak's body cam footage is already under review. So is the 911 call. By morning, this will be all over the news. Veteran nurse arrested outside her own home. Former combat medic handcuffed by officer who didn't bother to check his facts. You know how this plays out. I'm not looking for publicity. You won't have a choice. Trent stepped closer, voice dropping. The DoD takes this seriously. So does the VA. So does every veterans advocacy group in the country. Whether you want it or not, this is about to become very public and very messy. Claire stared at him. So what do you want? I want to make sure you have support, legal, medical, whatever you need. I don't need anything. I just want to go home. Trent handed her a card, plain white, just a name and a phone number. When you change your mind, call me. He got back in the car. The sedan pulled away. Claire stood alone on the sidewalk, staring at the card. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Ortiz. Heard what happened. Take tomorrow off. We'll cover your shifts. Then another, from Mrs. Kapoor. I recorded everything. Let me know if you need it. Then a third, from a number she didn't recognize. This is attorney Rachel Voss. I specialize in civil rights cases. If you want to pursue legal action, I'd like to talk. Claire slipped the phone back into her pocket. She didn't want a lawsuit, didn't want press, didn't want to become a symbol. She just wanted to go home. But as she started walking, the weight of the night settled over her. Not just the exhaustion, not just the anger, the certainty. This wasn't over. Not even close. The apartment felt different when she finally opened the door. Same couch, same scuffed coffee table, same stack of medical journals she kept meaning to read. But the air had changed, like someone had rearranged molecules while she was gone, shifted the balance just enough to make everything feel wrong. Claire dropped her bag by the door and locked it behind her. Deadbolt, chain. The flimsy security bar she'd bought after a break-in 2 buildings over. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, scrolled through the notifications without reading them. 23 missed calls now. Voicemails piling up, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize, all saying variations of the same thing. We saw what happened. We want to help. Call us. She silenced the phone and tossed it onto the couch. The bathroom mirror showed what she already knew. Exhaustion written in the dark circles under her eyes. Tension locked in her jaw. She peeled off the scrubs, balled them up, threw them in the hamper, turned the shower as hot as it would go, and stood under the spray until her skin turned pink. When she finally crawled into bed, it was past 2 a.m. Sleep didn't come. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the night frame by frame. Novak's hand on her wrist, the metallic click of the cuffs. The way Martinez had looked away, like he knew it was wrong but wasn't willing to say it out loud. The woman in yoga pants, phone pressed to her ear, narrating Claire's existence like it was a crime scene. And then Colonel Trent, stepping out of that black sedan like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Claire rolled onto her side, pulled the blanket tighter. She'd spent 18 months in a combat zone, learning to compartmentalize. You didn't survive field medicine by letting emotions bleed into your hands. You locked it down, focused on the task, dealt with the aftermath later. But this wasn't a shattered femur or a sucking chest wound. This was her life, her home, her reputation. And it was about to explode. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. Another call, another voicemail. She reached over and powered it off completely. Tomorrow, she'd deal with it. Tonight, she just needed the noise to stop. By 6 a.m., the noise had found her anyway. Claire woke to the sound of voices outside her window, not shouting, but close. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and crossed to the blinds. A news van was parked on the street below. A reporter stood on the sidewalk, microphone in hand, camera aimed at the building entrance. 2 more vans pulled up as she watched. You've got to be kidding me. She grabbed her phone, powered it back on. It immediately started buzzing, texts, calls, alerts stacking on top of each other so fast the screen couldn't keep up. One message stood out. Dr. Ortiz, don't come in today. It's a zoo here. Press is camped outside the hospital asking about you. Take the week. Paid leave. No arguments. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the message. A week. She'd taken exactly 3 sick days in 4 years, all of them because Ortiz had physically blocked the staff entrance and refused to let her work through a 102-degree fever. Now she was being benched because some cop couldn't do his job. Her laptop was still open on the coffee table from 2 nights ago. She pulled it toward her, opened a browser, and typed her own name. The results loaded instantly. Veteran nurse arrested outside her own home. Combat medic handcuffed. After neighbor reports. Suspicious activity. Redwood general nurse detained by police. Body cam footage sparks. Outrage. She clicked the first link. The article had been published 4 hours ago. Already had 12,000 shares. The body cam footage was embedded halfway down, grainy, but clear enough. There she was, standing in the hallway, holding up her key card. Novak's voice cutting through, "Anyone can wear scrubs." The comments section was a war zone. Half the people demanding Novak be fired immediately. The other half insisting there had to be more to the story, that Claire must have done something to provoke it. She closed the laptop. A knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Whitmore? It's Mrs. Kapoor." Claire exhaled, crossed to the door, and opened it. Mrs. Kapoor stood in the hallway holding a thermos and a plate covered in aluminum foil. "I brought chai. And samosas. You didn't eat last night, did you?" "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." Mrs. Kapoor stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, setting the food on the counter. "The reporters have been here since 5. I told them to leave, but they don't listen to old women anymore." Claire leaned against the counter. "You didn't have to do this." "Of course I did. What happened to you was shameful." Mrs. Kapoor poured chai into 2 mugs, handed one to Claire. "I sent the video to my son. He's a lawyer in Boston. He says you have a very strong case." "I don't want a case." "What you want and what you need are 2 different things." Mrs. Kapoor sipped her chai, eyes sharp. "They humiliated you. In front of your neighbors, in front of the whole city now. You think an apology fixes that?" Claire wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into her palms. "I just want it to go away." "It won't. Not unless you make them pay attention." "I'm not looking for attention." "Then you're going to get trampled." Mrs. Kapoor set down her mug. "I've seen this before. People like Novak, they do this because they think no one will fight back. You don't fight, they do it again, to someone else, someone who can't handle it the way you can." Claire didn't answer. Mrs. Kapoor patted her hand. "Eat, rest, think about it, but don't let them make you small." She left, closing the door softly behind her. Claire stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the samosas. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Hello? Miss Whitmore, this is Rachel Voss. I texted you last night." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. I'm not calling to pressure you. I'm calling because in about 2 hours, the police department is going to hold a press conference. They're going to apologize. They're going to say Officer Novak acted inappropriately, and then they're going to bury this." "How do you know?" "Because it's what they always do. Apologize, promise reforms, wait for the news cycle to move on. Unless you don't let them." Claire walked to the window, looked down at the news vans. "What do you want me to do?" "File a lawsuit, federal civil rights violation. Make this public, make it official, and make it expensive enough that they can't ignore it." "I don't want money." "This isn't about money. It's about making sure Novak never wears a badge again. It's about making sure the woman who called 911 faces consequences. And it's about sending a message that you can't treat people like criminals just because they don't fit your assumptions." Claire closed her eyes. "I need to think about it." "You have time, but not much. Once they apologize, the narrative shifts. Right now, you're the victim. Tomorrow, you're the person who won't accept an apology. That's how they win." Voss hung up. Claire set the phone down and pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Downstairs, the reporter was interviewing someone. A resident, maybe, or just someone who wanted to be on camera. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see the gestures, the nodding, the performance of concern. This was her life now. A story, a headline, a debate in a comment section. She hated it. But Mrs. Kapoor was right about one thing. If she did nothing, Novak would do this again. The press conference aired at 11. Claire watched it on her laptop, volume low, cursor hovering over the pause button like she might need to shut it off at any second. Chief of Police Harold Granger stood at a podium, flanked by Sergeant Brennan and a woman Claire didn't recognize, probably a PR handler. Granger was 60, gray-haired, with the kind of smooth delivery that came from decades of practice. Yesterday evening, one of our officers responded to a call regarding a possible break-in at a residential building on Maple Street. During the course of that response, a resident, Ms. Claire Whitmore, was briefly detained. After reviewing the body cam footage and speaking with witnesses, we have determined that Officer Derek Novak's actions did not meet the standards we expect from our department. Granger paused, glanced down at his notes. Officer Novak has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. We have reached out to Ms. Whitmore to offer our sincerest apologies. This incident does not reflect the values of this department or the community we serve. We are committed to ensuring that nothing like this happens again. A reporter shouted a question. Has Officer Novak been fired? As I said, he's on administrative leave. We're conducting a thorough review. What about the person who made the 911 call? We're looking into that as well. Is Ms. Whitmore planning to file a lawsuit? Granger's expression tightened just slightly. I can't speak to Ms. Whitmore's intentions. Our focus right now is on accountability and transparency. The press conference ended. Claire closed the laptop. Administrative leave. Not fired, not charged, just on hold. And the caller? Looking into it. Which meant nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel Voss. Did you watch? Claire typed back. Yes. What do you want to do? Claire stared at the message. What did she want? She wanted to go back to work. She wanted to stop being a headline. She wanted Novak to face real consequences, not a paid vacation while the department waited for people to forget. She wanted the woman in yoga pants to understand that calling 911 on someone for existing while black wasn't a harmless mistake. It was a weapon, and she wanted to make sure this never happened to anyone else. Her fingers moved across the screen. Let's talk. Voss called within 30 seconds. I'm listening, Claire said. Good. First thing, we file the lawsuit by end of week. Federal court civil rights violation under Section 1983. We name Novak, the department, and the city. We also file a separate complaint against the caller for filing a false report. Will that stick? Depends on what she said in the 911 call. If she lied or exaggerated, yes. If she genuinely believed what she was reporting, it's harder. But either way, we make her part of the story. Claire walked to the window again. The news vans were still there. What happens after we file? Discovery. Depositions. The department will try to settle early, offer you money to make it go away quietly. We reject that unless the terms include real accountability. I don't care about the money. I know, but the city does. That's leverage. We use it to push for policy changes, training reforms, independent oversight, and we make sure Novak's termination is part of the settlement. Claire's jaw tightened. What if they refuse? Then we go to trial, and we win. You sound confident. I am. I've seen the footage. I've read Novak's record. 3 excessive force complaints in 2 years, all dismissed. I've talked to witnesses from your building. This isn't a gray area, Claire. This is textbook misconduct. Claire leaned her forehead against the glass. How long does this take? Months, maybe a year? It's not quick and it's not easy, but it works. And in the meantime, you go back to your life. You work, you live. You don't let them take anything else from you. Claire closed her eyes. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. Voss exhaled, and Claire could hear the relief in it. I'll draft the complaint tonight. We'll meet tomorrow to go over everything. And Claire? Yeah? You're doing the right thing. Claire wasn't sure about that, but she was sure about one thing. She was done being quiet. The lawsuit hit the news 2 days later. Veteran nurse files federal civil rights lawsuit against police department. This time, the coverage was different, sharper, more focused. Reporters dug into Novak's record, found the complaints Voss had mentioned, found 2 other cases where he'd been accused of racial profiling, both settled quietly by the city. The 911 call was released. Claire listened to it once, sitting at her kitchen table, laptop open. The caller's voice was high, nervous, performative. Yeah, hi. I want to report a break-in. There's a woman trying to get into one of the apartments. She doesn't live here. The dispatcher. How do you know she doesn't live there? Because I've never seen her before, and she's acting suspicious. Can you describe her? Black woman. 30s, maybe. Wearing scrubs, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Is she trying to force the door? No, but she has a key, or something that looks like a key. I don't know, I just think someone should check it out. The call ended. Claire sat back, staring at the ceiling. I've never seen her before. 4 years. Claire had lived in that building for 4 years. And this woman, whoever she was, had decided that not recognizing someone was grounds for suspicion. The comment section on the news article was predictably split, some people calling for the caller to be prosecuted, others defending her. She was just being cautious. Better safe than sorry. Claire closed the laptop before she said something she'd regret. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Miss Whitmore, this is Lieutenant Angela Briggs. I'm with Internal Affairs. I'd like to speak with you about your complaint. Claire sat up. I already filed a lawsuit. I understand, but we're conducting our own investigation. I'd like to get your statement on record. It won't interfere with your legal case. I've already spoken with Ms. Voss. When? Tomorrow, if you're available. I can come to you, or we can meet at the station. Not the station. Understood. Is there a neutral location you'd prefer? Claire thought for a moment. Redwood General, Conference Room B, 2 p.m. I'll be there. Briggs hung up. Claire stared at the phone. Internal Affairs. That meant the department was taking this seriously, or at least pretending to. She texted Voss. Internal Affairs wants to meet tomorrow. You coming? Voss replied immediately. Absolutely. Don't say anything without me there. The next afternoon, Claire walked into Redwood General for the first time since the arrest. The ER was chaos, as always. Ambulance pulling up to the bay, paramedics shouting vitals, someone's kid screaming in the waiting room. Familiar noise, comforting noise. Dr. Ortiz spotted her near the vending machines. Claire, you okay? I'm fine. Ortiz didn't look convinced. You don't have to be here. I told you. Take the week. I'm not here to work. Meeting with Internal Affairs. Ortiz's expression darkened. Want me to sit in? Voss is coming. Good. Don't let them twist this. Ortiz squeezed her shoulder. And if you need anything, you know where I am. Claire nodded and headed upstairs. Conference Room B was small, windowless, with a table that wobbled if you leaned on it wrong. Voss was already there, setting up a laptop and a stack of folders. Ready? Voss asked. As I'll ever be. Lieutenant Briggs arrived exactly at 2. She was younger than Claire expected. Early 40s, maybe, with short, dark hair and the kind of direct gaze that didn't waste time on pleasantries. She shook Claire's hand. Thank you for meeting with me. Let's get this over with. Briggs sat, pulled out a recorder, and set it on the table. This is a formal interview as part of an internal investigation into the conduct of Officer Derek Novak on the evening of April 12th. Present are Lieutenant Angela Briggs, Ms. Claire Whitmore, and Ms. Rachel Voss, representing Ms. Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, do you consent to this interview being recorded? I do? Good. Let's start from the beginning. What time did you arrive home that night? Claire walked her through it, the double shift, the drive home, the woman on the phone, the officers in the hallway. Novak's refusal to accept her ID, the cuffs, the precinct. Briggs took notes, asked follow-up questions, stayed professional. Did Officer Novak or Officer Martinez use physical force beyond the handcuffs? No. Did either of them make any statements you interpreted as racially motivated? Claire hesitated. Not explicitly. But Novak kept implying I didn't belong there, that my ID could be fake, that my scrubs could be stolen. He looked at me and saw a threat, not a nurse coming home from work. Briggs nodded, wrote something down. Did you feel your safety was at risk? I felt humiliated, violated, like I had to prove I deserved to exist in my own building. And at the precinct? Sergeant Brennan apologized. Detective Ruiz tried to smooth things over, but none of that changes what happened. Briggs leaned back. Ms. Whitmore, I want you to know that this investigation is being taken very seriously. Officer Novak's record is under review. So is the department's response protocol. What does that mean? It means we're looking at whether this was an isolated incident or part of a pattern, Voss cut in. You already know it's a pattern. Novak has 3 prior complaints, which is why we're reviewing them. Reviewing isn't accountability. Briggs met Voss's gaze. I can't promise you outcomes. I can promise you a thorough investigation. Claire leaned forward. What happens to the woman who called 911? That's a separate matter. The DA's office is reviewing the call to determine if charges are warranted. And if they're not, then there are no criminal charges, but your civil case can still proceed. That's not enough. Briggs didn't flinch. I understand your frustration, but I can only control what happens within this department. The interview lasted another 40 minutes. By the time Briggs left, Claire's head was pounding. Voss packed up her laptop. You did good. Doesn't feel like it. Internal affairs doesn't move fast, but she's taking this seriously. That's something. Claire rubbed her temples. I'm tired of waiting for other people to do the right thing. Then let's make them. Voss handed her a folder. Discovery requests, body cam footage, personnel files, training records. Everything we need to build the case. It's going to get messy, but we're going to win. Claire took the folder. Downstairs, the ER was still chaos. Someone coding in trauma 2. A drug overdose in the hallway. Dr. Ortiz barking orders at a resident who looked like he might pass out. Claire stood at the edge of it, watching. This was her world. Not press conferences, not lawsuits, not reporters shoving microphones in her face. But that world had been taken from her the moment Novak put those cuffs on, and she was going to get it back. 2 weeks later, the city offered a settlement. Voss called her at 7 in the morning. They're offering $250,000. Novak gets fired. Sensitivity training for the department. Standard gag order. Claire was still in bed, barely awake. What about the caller? Not part of the settlement. That's a separate issue. Then no. Voss paused. Claire, this is a solid offer. I don't care. If the caller walks, this happens again. The DA already said they're not pressing charges. The best we can do is a civil suit, and that's going to take... I don't care how long it takes. I'm not settling unless she's held accountable. Voss was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I'll tell them no. Good. But Claire, this is going to get harder. They're going to dig into your life, your past, everything. Let them. The phone clicked off. Claire got out of bed, made coffee, and opened her laptop. The news had moved on, mostly. A few local outlets still running follow-up pieces, but the national coverage had faded. Just another story about police misconduct in a country full of them. But Claire wasn't done. She pulled up the caller's information, publicly available now, thanks to the lawsuit. Her name was Jessica Brennan, 29, marketing consultant, moved into the building 6 months ago. Claire stared at the name. Jessica Brennan thought she was protecting her community. She had no idea what she'd actually done. A knock at the door pulled Claire out of her thoughts. She wasn't expecting anyone. She checked the peephole. Colonel Trent stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking like he had all the time in the world. Claire opened the door. What are you doing here? We need to talk. About? Trent stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The settlement offer. You turned it down. Claire closed the door. How do you know that? Because the DOD is monitoring this case, and because turning down $250,000 tells me you're not interested in making this go away. I'm not. Trent nodded slowly. Good. Because the department is about to escalate. Claire's stomach tightened. What does that mean? It means they're going to try to discredit you, dig up anything they can use, medical records, military records, relationships, finances, anything that makes you look unreliable or opportunistic. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something. Trent sat on the arm of the couch. And they're very good at making nothing look like something. Claire crossed her arms. So what do you want me to do? Let us help. The DOD has resources, legal support, media strategy. We can make sure your story stays clean. Why do you care? Because you're a veteran. And because if they succeed in tearing you down, it sends a message to every veteran in this country that their service doesn't matter the moment it becomes inconvenient. Claire stared at him. This isn't about me, is it? No. It's bigger than you, but that doesn't make it any less real. Trent stood, pulled out another card, different from the last one. Heavier stock, embossed lettering. Call this number if things get worse, and they will. He left. Claire stood alone in her apartment, holding the card. Outside, the sun was setting. The news vans were gone. The street looked normal again, but nothing was normal. And somewhere across town, Jessica Brennan was going about her life, probably convinced she'd done nothing wrong. Claire's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You should have taken the money. Her grip tightened on the phone. Then another message. This is just the beginning. Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat on the couch with her phone in one hand and Colonel Trent's card in the other, staring at the threatening texts until the screen blurred. You should have taken the money. This is just the beginning. She'd dealt with threats before. Kandahar had been full of them. IEDs hidden in trash piles, snipers on rooftops, locals who smiled during the day and planted bombs at night. But those threats had rules. You knew who the enemy was. You knew what they wanted. This was different. This was someone hiding behind a phone number, trying to scare her into silence. She forwarded the messages to Voss, then blocked the number. Her phone buzzed immediately. A call from Voss. "You okay?" Voss asked. "Fine. Those texts are evidence. I'm filing a police report and adding them to the case." "They won't do anything." "Maybe not, but it establishes a pattern of harassment, and if this escalates, we've got documentation." Claire leaned back, closed her eyes. "Trent came by tonight, said the department's going to try to discredit me." "He's right, they will, but we're ready for it." "Are we?" Voss paused. "Claire, listen to me. You're going to hear things about yourself in the next few weeks. Things that aren't true, things taken out of context, things twisted to make you look bad. It's going to feel personal because it is personal, but that's how they operate. They can't win on the facts, so they attack the person. And if it works, it won't, because we're not giving them anything to work with." Claire wanted to believe that. She really did. But she'd seen how these things played out. The news cycle didn't care about truth. It cared about drama. And right now, she was the drama. "Get some rest," Voss said. "I'll call you tomorrow." The line went dead. Claire set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Rest wasn't coming. The first hit piece dropped 3 days later. Claire was at the hospital, back on shift after Ortiz had finally stopped hovering, when her phone started blowing up. Text after text, all variations of the same thing. "Have you seen this?" She ducked into the staff lounge, pulled up the article. "Hero or opportunist?" Questions surround nurses' civil rights lawsuit. The byline belonged to a local blogger with a history of pro-police commentary. The article didn't outright call Claire a liar, but it didn't have to. It raised questions, suggested inconsistencies, quoted anonymous sources claiming she'd been difficult during the arrest, that she'd escalated the situation, that her military service was being used as a shield. There was a photo halfway down, Claire in uniform, standing outside a field hospital in Kandahar. Someone had dug it up from a veteran appreciation post she'd shared years ago. The caption read, "Whitmore's military background has become central to her narrative, but sources say her service record includes disciplinary issues." Claire's hands shook. Disciplinary issues. That was a lie. She'd been written up once, for insubordination, after she'd refused a direct order from a captain who wanted her to delay treatment on a Marine with a severed artery because a higher-ranking officer had a sprained ankle. She'd told the captain to handle the sprain himself, stabilize the Marine, and saved his life. The reprimand had been overturned within a week, but now it was being spun as evidence that she had a history of conflict with authority. Her phone rang. Voss. "I'm already on it," Voss said before Claire could speak. "This is defamation. We're drafting a cease and desist, and if they don't retract, we're adding them to the lawsuit." "Who's the source?" "Anonymous, but my guess, someone in the department leaked your personnel file." Claire's jaw tightened. "That's illegal." "It is, and we're going to prove it. But right now, I need you to stay off social media. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let me handle this." People are going to believe this. Some will. Most won't. The people who matter, the judge, the jury if it goes to trial, they'll see the truth. Claire hung up and leaned against the locker, breathing through the anger. Dr. Ortiz walked in, holding a tablet. "You saw it?" "Yeah. It's garbage. Everyone here knows it's garbage. That doesn't stop people from reading it." Ortiz sat beside her. "You know what I did this morning? I got an email from administration asking if you'd ever had any incidents at work, any complaints, any disciplinary actions." Claire looked up sharply. "What did you say?" "I told them you're the best nurse on my staff, and if they had a problem with that, they could take it up with me directly." Ortiz's expression hardened. "Then I forwarded the email to HR and told them if they cooperate with a smear campaign against one of our employees, I'll make sure every medical board in the state knows about it." Claire felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, just shifting. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just keep your head down and let Voss do her job." Easier said than done. By the end of the week, 2 more articles had surfaced. One claimed Claire had a history of filing complaints against co-workers. Another suggested she was financially motivated, pointing to student loans and credit card debt as evidence she needed the settlement money. None of it was true, but none of it had to be. The damage was already done. Claire's social media had become a battlefield. Strangers arguing in the comments of posts she'd made years ago. People she'd never met calling her a fraud, a liar, a race baiter looking for a payday. She deleted her accounts. Then someone posted her phone number. The calls started immediately. Most of them hung up as soon as she answered. A few stayed on long enough to hurl slurs before disconnecting. She changed her number. Then someone found her address. Mrs. Kapoor knocked on her door at 10 p.m., face pale. "There are people outside taking pictures of the building. I called the police, but they said, unless someone's trespassing, there's nothing they can do." Claire looked through the peephole. 3 people stood on the sidewalk across the street. Phones out, cameras aimed at her window. She closed the blinds, locked the door, and texted Voss. "It's getting worse." Voss called immediately. "Pack a bag. I'm getting you out of there." "I'm not running." "This isn't running. This is staying safe. These people don't care about the truth. They just want a target. And right now, you're it." Claire looked around her apartment, the same couch, the same coffee table, the same stack of journals she still hadn't read. This was her home. She wasn't leaving. "I'll be fine," she said. "Claire, I'll be fine." She hung up. The people outside stayed for another hour, then left. Claire didn't sleep. The deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in a conference room downtown. Claire arrived with Voss at 8:45, dressed in slacks and a blazer that felt too tight across the shoulders. The city's legal team was already there, 3 lawyers in identical navy suits, files stacked neatly on the table. The lead attorney was a man in his 50s named Richard Calloway, with silver hair and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Miss Whitmore," he said, standing, "thank you for coming." Claire didn't shake his hand. The court reporter sat up in the corner. Voss opened her laptop. Calloway shuffled papers. "Let's begin," he said. "Ms. Whitmore, can you state your full name for the record?" "Claire Marie Whitmore." "And your current occupation?" "Registered nurse, emergency department at Redwood General Hospital." "How long have you been employed there?" 4 years?" Calloway nodded, making a note. "And prior to that?" "I worked at Mercy Hospital in Portland for 2 years." "Before that?" "I was in the Army." "As a combat medic, correct?" "Correct." "And you were deployed to Afghanistan, twice?" "Yes." Calloway leaned back. "Tell me about your deployments." Voss cut in. "Relevance?" "Ms. Whitmore's military service is a central part of her narrative. I'm simply establishing the facts." Claire met his gaze. "I was attached to the 3rd Marine Division, 18 months total in Kandahar. My job was to keep people alive long enough to get them to a field hospital. And you received commendations for that work." "I did." "Including a Bronze Star." "Yes." Calloway flipped a page. "You were also reprimanded, weren't you?" Voss's hand shot up. "Objection. That reprimand was overturned." "But it happened." Claire's fingers tightened around the armrest. "I refused an order that would have resulted in a Marine bleeding out. The reprimand was rescinded once the facts came to light. But you did refuse a direct order." "I prioritize saving a life over following a bad command." "So you have a history of disregarding authority when you disagree with it." "I have a history of doing what's right." Calloway smiled. "That's a matter of perspective, isn't it?" Voss leaned forward. "Are we here to discuss Miss Whitmore's decorated military service? Or are we here to discuss the fact that your client handcuffed her outside her own home?" Calloway ignored her. "Ms. Whitmore, let's talk about the night in question. You'd just finished a double shift, correct?" "Yes." "How many hours had you been awake?" "I don't know, 17, maybe." "And during that shift, did you consume any medications? Caffeine? Anything to help you stay alert?" Claire stared at him. "Coffee. That's it." "No prescription medications?" "No." "Are you currently taking any prescription medications?" Voss slammed her hand on the table. "That's irrelevant, and you know it." "I'm establishing Ms. Whitmore's state of mind." "Her state of mind was exhausted after working a double shift saving lives. What's your point?" Calloway turned back to Claire. When Officer Novak approached you, how did you respond? I told him I lived there.
Did you raise your voice?
No. Did you make any sudden movements? I reached for my wallet to show him my ID. And Officer Novak perceived that as a potential threat. Claire's laugh was sharp, bitter. He perceived a tired nurse as a threat because he didn't bother to think, or because you were acting suspiciously. I was unlocking my own door. After someone reported you as a potential intruder, someone who didn't recognize me because she'd never bothered to learn who her neighbors were. Calloway leaned forward. You're angry, Ms. Whitmore. Of course I'm angry. Angry enough to file a lawsuit seeking financial compensation. I filed a lawsuit to make sure Novak never does this to anyone else. But you're also seeking monetary damages. The money's not the point. Then why include it? Voss cut in again. Because the law requires it, and because the city's misconduct has a price. Calloway smiled again. We'll see what a jury thinks. The deposition lasted 4 hours. By the end, Claire's head was pounding and her hands ached from gripping the armrests. In the parking garage, Voss pulled out her phone. That was brutal, but you did great. Didn't feel great. Calloway's trying to rattle you. Don't let him. Claire leaned against the car. He's going to use my military record against me. He's going to try. But we've got the facts on our side. The body cam footage, the witness statements, the 911 call, all of it supports your version of events. What about Jessica Brennan? Voss hesitated. Her deposition is next week. We'll see what she says. And if she lies, then we prove it. Claire wanted to believe that was enough. But she'd spent the last month watching the truth get buried under spin and speculation, and she was starting to wonder if the truth even mattered anymore. That night, Claire got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Ms. Whitmore, this is Angela Briggs. Do you have a minute? Claire sat up. What's wrong? I wanted to give you a heads up before it hits the news. The internal affairs investigation is complete. Claire's pulse quickened. And? Officer Novak has been terminated, effective immediately. Claire exhaled slowly. Good. There's more. We reviewed his personnel file and found evidence that supervisors ignored multiple red flags over the past 2 years. 3 formal complaints, all dismissed without proper investigation. So it wasn't just me. No, it wasn't. Briggs paused. The department is implementing new oversight protocols, mandatory bias training, independent review for all use of force incidents. It's not perfect, but it's a start. What about Novak? Can he get hired somewhere else? Not easily. His termination is on record. Any agency that runs a background check will see it. Claire closed her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The union's filing a grievance. They're arguing the termination was politically motivated. Of course they are. It won't go anywhere. But it means this isn't over. Briggs hung up. Claire sat in the dark, staring at her phone. Novak was fired. That should have felt like a victory, but all she felt was tired. The next morning, the news broke. Officer Derek Novak terminated following internal investigation. The coverage was immediate. Some outlets framed it as accountability, others as a rush to judgment. The union released a statement calling it a witch hunt driven by media pressure. Novak himself gave an interview. Claire watched it in the hospital break room, volume low. He sat across from a sympathetic reporter looking tired and earnest. I made a judgment call based on the information I had. Was it the right call? In hindsight, no. But I was trying to protect the community, and now my career is over because of a political agenda. The reporter nodded. Do you feel like you were made a scapegoat? Absolutely. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I followed my training, I responded to a call, and now I'm being vilified because it's easier to blame one officer than to address the real issues. Claire turned off the TV. Dr. Ortiz walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. You okay? He's playing the victim. Let him. The facts don't change. The facts don't matter if people don't believe them. Ortiz handed her a coffee. You know what I learned in med school? You can't control what people believe. You can only control what you do, and you're doing the right thing. Claire took a sip. Doesn't feel like it. It never does. Not until it's over. But it wasn't over, not even close. Jessica Brennan's deposition was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Voss sent Claire the transcript 2 days later. Claire read it in one sitting, hands shaking. Trufros. Ms. Brennan, can you describe what you saw the night you called 911? I saw a woman trying to get into one of the apartments. I didn't recognize her, and it seemed suspicious. Push, why did it seem suspicious? Ayla, because I'd never seen her before, and she was acting nervous. Kwashi, how was she acting nervous? Huts, she kept looking around like she was checking to see if anyone was watching. Kwasi, did she force the door? No, but she had something in her hand. I thought it might be a tool. Q. It was a key card. A. I didn't know that at the time. Kyung, did you consider asking her if she lived there? Amy. No, I didn't want to confront her. Kya. But you felt comfortable calling the police. Eto, I thought I was doing the right thing. Kya. Do you still think you did the right thing? I don't know. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Claire closed the file. Jessica Brennan didn't mean for this to happen. As if that changed anything. As if good intentions erased the consequences. Her phone rang. Voss. You read it? Voss asked. Yeah. She's trying to play innocent. Nervous first-time caller just trying to keep her building safe. Is it going to work? Not if we push back. But Claire, I need to tell you something. The city's offering a new settlement. Claire's stomach dropped. How much? 500,000. Novak stays fired. Brennan issues a public apology, full policy reforms, and a gag order. And if I say no, we go to trial, which could take another year, and there's no guarantee we win more than what they're offering now. Claire stared out the window. What do you think I should do? Voss was quiet for a long moment. I think you've already won. Novak's fired. The department's implementing changes. Brennan's name is public record. Taking the settlement means you get to move on. And if I want her held accountable, then we keep fighting. But Claire, I have to be honest with you. The odds of getting criminal charges filed against Brennan are slim. The DA already declined. A civil suit could take years and cost more than you'd ever recover. Claire closed her eyes. So she just gets away with it. She doesn't. Her name's attached to this forever. She lost her job. She's being eviscerated online. That's not nothing. It's not enough. I know. Claire hung up. She sat alone in her apartment staring at the settlement offer Voss had emailed over. $500,000. Policy reforms. Novak fired. Everything she'd asked for, except justice for the woman who'd started it all. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. Claire stared at it, then another message. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. She didn't respond, but she didn't block the number either. 3 days later, Claire walked into Voss's office and dropped the settlement papers on the desk. I'm not signing. Voss looked up. Claire, I'm not signing. Not until Brennan faces real consequences. We've been over this. The DA won't file charges. Then we file a civil suit, just like you said. That could take... I don't care how long it takes. Voss leaned back, studying her. You're sure about this? Completely. Voss nodded slowly. Okay, then we fight. The civil suit against Jessica Brennan was filed the following week. Veteran nurse files lawsuit against woman who reported her to police. The coverage exploded. Brennan's lawyer released a statement calling it vindictive and unnecessary. Online commentators argued both sides. Some said Claire was going too far. Others said she wasn't going far enough. Claire didn't read any of it. She went back to work. Back to 12-hour shifts. Back to saving lives in an ER that didn't care about headlines or lawsuits or anything except whether you could keep someone's heart beating long enough to get them to surgery. And then, 2 weeks later, everything changed. Claire was in the middle of a shift when Dr. Ortiz found her. You need to see this. Ortiz pulled up a news article on her phone. Jessica Brennan admits to filing false 911 report in tearful interview. Claire stared at the screen. The article included a video. Brennan sat across from a reporter, eyes red, voice shaking. I made a terrible mistake, Brennan said. I saw someone I didn't recognize and I panicked. I didn't think about what would happen. I didn't think about how it would affect her. And I'm so sorry. The reporter leaned forward. Are you prepared to face the consequences? Brennan nodded. Yes, whatever it takes. Claire's hands went numb. Ortiz squeezed her shoulder. She just admitted it, on camera. Claire couldn't speak. Her phone rang. Voss. Did you see? Voss asked, voice vibrating with energy. Yeah. This changes everything. She just handed us the case. The DA's reopening the investigation. We've got her on record admitting she lied. Claire sank into a chair. Why would she do that? My guess. Her lawyer told her it was the only way to avoid criminal charges. Public apology, take responsibility, hope for leniency. Will it work? That's up to the DA, but it doesn't matter for our case. We've got what we need. Claire hung up and stared at the phone. Jessica Brennan had just destroyed her own defense, and Claire didn't feel relieved. She felt hollow. That night, Claire sat on her couch staring at the ceiling when someone knocked on the door. She checked the peephole. Colonel Trent. She opened the door. It's late. I know. I'll make this quick. Trent stepped inside, hands in his pockets. Brennan's confession is all over the news. The DOD is tracking it. So is the VA. You're about to become the face of a national conversation. I don't want that. Too late. But here's the thing. You've got leverage now. Real leverage. The kind that changes policy. Not just in this city. Everywhere. Claire crossed her arms. What are you asking me to do? Testify before Congress. There's a hearing next month on police accountability and veteran rights. Your case is exactly what they need. I'm not a politician. You don't have to be. You just have to tell the truth. Claire looked away. I'm tired, Colonel. I know, but if you stop now, this becomes just another story. Another headline that fades. You testify. You make sure it means something. He left the card on the table and walked out. Claire stared at it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jessica Brennan's number. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't either, but I meant what I said. I'm sorry. Claire set the phone down. Outside, the city hummed, sirens in the distance, a dog barking, the world moving forward like nothing had happened. But something had, and Claire still didn't know if it was enough. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then a voice. Low, distorted, barely human. You think this is over? The line went dead. Claire's hand stayed locked around the phone long after the line went dead. The distorted voice echoed in her head, mechanical, deliberate, designed to terrify. She set the phone on the table and stared at it like it might ring again. It didn't. She called Voss first. No answer. Left a message. Someone just threatened me. Call me back. Then she called the number Colonel Trent had given her. He picked up on the second ring. Whitmore? I just got a call. Distorted voice. Asked if I thought this was over. Trent's voice sharpened. When? 2 minutes ago. Are you home? Yes. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. I'm sending someone. I don't need You do. Stay put. He hung up. Claire walked to the door, checked the locks, then moved to the window. The street below was empty. No cars idling. No figures in the shadows, just streetlights and silence. Her phone buzzed. Voss calling back. I got your message, Voss said. Did you recognize the voice? No, it was distorted. Could have been anyone. Male or female. I don't know. It was too processed. Voss exhaled slowly. I'm filing a report tonight, and I'm requesting a restraining order against anyone associated with Novak or Brennan. That won't stop someone hiding behind a phone. No, but it creates a legal record. If this escalates, we've got documentation. Claire leaned against the wall. Trent's sending someone over. Good. Don't stay there alone tonight. I'm not leaving my home. Then don't answer the door unless you know who it is. 20 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up outside. 2 men in plain clothes stepped out, both mid-30s, both moving with the kind of precision that screamed military or federal. One stayed by the vehicle. The other came upstairs. He knocked twice. Miss Whitmore. Agent Marcus Wells, DOD Security Liaison. Claire checked the peephole, then opened the door. Wells showed his credentials. Federal ID, clean and official. Colonel Trent asked me to check in. Mind if I come in? She stepped aside. Wells did a quick sweep of the apartment, checked the windows, the locks, the fire escape. You live alone? Yes. Any security system? No. He pulled a small device from his jacket, looked like a thick USB drive. This is a signal detector. Checks for bugs, cameras, trackers. Mind if I run it? Claire nodded. Wells moved through the apartment methodically, scanning walls, furniture, outlets. The device stayed silent until he reached the living room bookshelf. It beeped. He froze. What? Claire asked. Wells pulled a book off the shelf, an old medical textbook she hadn't opened in months. He flipped it open, ran the scanner over the spine. The beep intensified. He pulled out a pocket knife, carefully pried open the binding. A tiny black disc fell onto the table. Claire's stomach dropped. What is that? Audio transmitter. Low grade but functional. Wells bagged it, kept scanning. 2 more devices. One behind the kitchen clock. One inside the smoke detector. By the time he finished, Claire was sitting on the couch, hands shaking. Someone's been listening to you, Wells said. Probably for weeks. Who? Can't say for sure without analyzing the hardware, but these aren't consumer grade. Whoever planted them knew what they were doing. Claire's mind raced. She thought about every conversation she'd had in this apartment, every call with Voss, every discussion about strategy, evidence, depositions. Someone had been listening to all of it. Can you trace them? She asked. Maybe. I'll get them to a lab. Wells pocketed the bag. In the meantime, you need to assume anything you've said here has been compromised. So what do I do? Change your routine. Don't discuss case details at home. And consider staying somewhere else until we figure out who's behind this. Claire stood. I'm not running. This isn't running. It's being smart. I've been smart for a month. It hasn't stopped anything. Wells studied her for a moment. Colonel Trent said you were stubborn. He say anything else? That you don't break easy. Wells handed her a card. You need anything? Call me, day or night. He left. Claire locked the door behind him and stared at the empty bookshelf. Someone had been in her home, planted devices, listened to her breathe, sleep, live, and now they were threatening her. She grabbed her phone and called Voss again. They bugged my apartment, Claire said. Voss swore under her breath. When? I don't know. Wells found 3 devices, audio transmitters. That's illegal surveillance. We're adding it to the complaint. Against who? We don't know who planted them. Not yet. But we will. Voss paused. Claire, this changes things. Whoever's doing this isn't just trying to scare you. They're trying to sabotage the case. Novak? Maybe. Or someone connected to him. The union, a friend, another cop. We'll find out. Claire sank onto the couch. What if we don't? We will. I promise you. But promises didn't stop the voice in Claire's head replaying that distorted threat over and over. The next morning, Claire went to work. She didn't tell anyone about the bugs or the call. She just clocked in, grabbed her assignment sheet, and buried herself in the chaos of the ER. A teenage overdose. A construction worker with a nail through his hand. An elderly woman seizing in Bay 3. The work didn't stop. The work never stopped. And that was exactly what Claire needed. Dr. Ortiz found her during a lull, sitting in the supply closet with a protein bar she hadn't touched. You okay? Ortiz asked. Fine. You're a terrible liar. Claire looked up. Someone bugged my apartment. Ortiz's face went pale. When? I don't know. Federal agent swept it last night. Found 3 devices. Did you call the police? Claire laughed bitterly. The police are the problem. Ortiz sat beside her. You can't keep doing this alone. I'm not alone. I've got Voss, I've got Trent, I've got you. That's not what I mean. Ortiz's voice softened. You're carrying all of this like it's your responsibility to fix. It's not. You didn't create this mess. You're just the one who refused to let it slide. So what am I supposed to do? Give up? No, but you need to let people help you. Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Voss. DA's office just called. They're filing criminal charges against Brennan. False reporting. Filing a false police report. She's being arraigned tomorrow. Claire showed Ortiz the message. See, Ortiz said, it's working. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing in the middle of a highway, watching cars scream past, waiting for the one that would finally hit. The arraignment was held in a downtown courthouse, third floor, courtroom packed with reporters and spectators. Claire sat in the back with Voss, watching Jessica Brennan walk in flanked by her lawyer. Brennan looked smaller than Claire remembered, thinner, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, no makeup, wearing a gray suit that hung loose on her frame. She didn't look at Claire. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and no patience for theatrics, called the court to order. The charges were read: filing a false police report, penalties up to 6 months in jail, a $5,000 fine, probation. Brennan's lawyer entered a plea. Not guilty, Your Honor. The courtroom erupted, reporters typing furiously, spectators whispering. The judge slammed her gavel. Order. Bail was set at $10,000. Brennan posted it within the hour. As she left the courthouse, reporters swarmed her, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in her face. Ms. Brennan, do you regret calling 911? Are you planning to apologize to Ms. Whitmore in person? Do you think you'll be convicted? Brennan didn't answer. She pushed through the crowd, climbed into a waiting car, and disappeared. Claire watched from the courthouse steps. Voss stood beside her. She pleaded not guilty. I noticed. That means trial, probably in 3 months. She's going to fight this. Good. Let her. Voss glanced at her. You sure you're ready for that? I've been ready since the night Novak put those cuffs on me. Back at the apartment, Claire found an envelope slipped under her door. No postage, no return address, just her name written in block letters. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Claire walking into Redwood General, scrubs on, bag over her shoulder. The angle suggested it had been taken from across the street. On the back, written in the same block letters, "We're always watching." Claire's hands went cold. She called Wells immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes, bagged the envelope, examined the photograph under a portable light. Printed on standard photo paper. No fingerprints I can see, but we'll test it. He looked up. You need to take this seriously, Miss Whitmore. I am taking it seriously. Then let us move you to a secure location. No. Someone is surveilling you. They've bugged your home. They're sending you threats. This isn't going to stop just because you're stubborn. I'm not leaving. Wells exhaled slowly. Then at least let us install a security system. Cameras, motion sensors, something. Claire hesitated. Fine. Good. I'll have a team here tomorrow. He left with the envelope. Claire locked the door and sat on the couch, staring at the empty spot where the photograph had been. Someone was watching her, following her, trying to break her. But she'd been through worse, way worse. And she wasn't breaking. The security system was installed the next day. Cameras at the door and windows, motion sensors in the hallway, a panic button by the bed. Wells walked her through the setup, showed her how to access the feed from her phone. Anything unusual, you call me, he said. Claire nodded. That night she didn't sleep. She watched the camera feeds on her phone, checking every shadow, every movement. Nothing. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. A notification from the motion sensor. Someone was in the hallway. Claire grabbed the panic button, pulled up the camera feed. A figure stood outside her door, hooded sweatshirt, face obscured, hands in pockets. They didn't knock. They just stood there, watching. Claire's pulse hammered. The figure reached into their pocket. She hit the panic button. The alarm blared. Lights in the hallway flashed. The figure bolted. Claire ran to the door, looked through the peephole. Empty. She opened the door, looked down the hallway. A piece of paper lay on the floor. She picked it up. Written in the same block letters, "Drop the case or it gets worse." Claire crushed the paper in her fist. Wells arrived 10 minutes later with 2 other agents. They reviewed the footage, canvassed the building, found nothing. Whoever it was knew where the cameras were, Wells said, kept their face hidden, timed it perfectly. So they've been watching the system too. Possible. We'll upgrade the encryption. But Claire, this is escalating. Whoever's doing this isn't playing around. Neither am I. Wells studied her. What do you want to do? Claire looked at the crumpled note in her hand. I want to find out who's behind this, and I want them prosecuted. We're working on it, but these things take time. I don't have time. They're trying to scare me into dropping the case, which means I'm close to something they don't want exposed. Wells didn't argue. The next morning, Voss called with news. Novak's phone records came through, and guess what? He's been in contact with someone at the police union. A lot. That's not unusual. It is when the contact intensified right after you filed the lawsuit, and it is when that same union rep has a history of intimidating witnesses in misconduct cases. Claire sat up. Who? Guy named Thomas Reardon, union rep for 15 years, known for aggressive tactics. He's been involved in at least 4 cases where witnesses mysteriously recanted or dropped complaints. Can you prove he's behind the threats? Not yet, but we're digging. And if we can tie him to the surveillance devices or the notes, we've got him. Claire felt something shift in her chest. Not hope exactly, but direction. A target. What do you need from me? She asked. Nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing. Let us handle this. But Claire had never been good at letting other people handle things. She pulled up Thomas Reardon's profile online. 52. Former beat cop turned union organizer, known for fiery speeches defending officers accused of misconduct. Social media full of posts about how cops were under siege, how activists were destroying law enforcement, how good officers were being sacrificed for political correctness. And there, buried in a post from 2 weeks ago, was a photo. Reardon standing outside the courthouse during Brennan's arraignment. Watching. Claire forwarded the image to Voss with a single word. Him? Voss called back immediately. Where did you find this? His Facebook public post. He was there, at the arraignment. Which means he's tracking the case. Voss was quiet for a moment. I'm sending this to Wells. If Reardon's involved, we need to move fast. 2 days later, federal agents raided Reardon's home and office. They found a burner phone with Claire's number saved. They found receipts for surveillance equipment matching the devices pulled from her apartment. They found drafts of the threatening notes on his computer. By noon, Thomas Reardon was in federal custody, charged with witness intimidation, illegal surveillance, and stalking. The news hit like a bomb. Police union rep arrested for intimidating veteran nurse in civil rights case. Claire watched the coverage from her apartment, cameras rolling as Reardon was escorted out of the federal building in handcuffs. He didn't look scared. He looked defiant, like he believed he'd done nothing wrong. Voss called. We got him. I see that. This changes everything. The union's scrambling. Novak's distancing himself. And the city's going to want to settle immediately before this gets worse. What about Brennan's trial? Still moving forward, but Reardon's arrest strengthens our case, shows a coordinated effort to silence you. Claire closed her eyes. When does this end? Soon, I promise. But Claire had stopped believing in promises. That night she got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Ms. Whitmore. The voice was calm, professional, not distorted this time. My name is Catherine Brennan, Jessica's mother. Claire's grip tightened on the phone. I know you have no reason to listen to me, Catherine continued, but I'm asking you to, just for a minute. Claire didn't hang up. My daughter made a terrible mistake. I'm not excusing it. I'm not defending it. But she's not a monster. She's a scared young woman who panicked and made the worst decision of her life. She tried to have me arrested. I know, and she'll live with that for the rest of her life. But Ms. Whitmore, she's getting death threats now. People showing up at her apartment. She's lost her job, her friends, everything. And I'm afraid for her. Claire stared at the wall. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm asking you to show her the mercy she didn't show you. I'm not dropping the case. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to understand that she's suffering too. Claire's jaw tightened. Good. Catherine was silent for a moment. I understand why you feel that way. I do. But please, just think about it. That's all I ask. She hung up. Claire set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Jessica Brennan was suffering. Good. But the word tasted bitter. The trial was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, the city offered a final settlement, $750,000. Full policy reform. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Reardon prosecuted separately. Novak banned from law enforcement permanently. And no gag order. Voss presented it over coffee at a cafe 2 blocks from the courthouse. This is as good as it gets, Voss said. They're giving you everything. Claire stirred her coffee. What about Brennan? Her criminal trial proceeds separately. This doesn't affect that. So she could still walk. She could, but with Reardon's arrest and the evidence we've compiled, the DA's feeling confident. Claire took a sip. The coffee was too hot. She drank it anyway. If I take this, is it over? The lawsuit, yes. But you'll still testify at Brennan's trial if the DA calls you. Claire looked out the window. People walking past, living their lives. Oblivious. What do you think I should do? Voss leaned back. I think you've already won. The question is whether you want to keep fighting or take the victory and move on. Claire didn't answer. She signed the settlement papers that afternoon. The announcement went public the next day. Veteran nurse settles civil rights lawsuit for $750,000. City admits wrongdoing. The coverage was massive. National outlets picked it up. Editorial boards praised the settlement as a step toward accountability. But some voices pushed back. Called it excessive. Said Claire was cashing in on victimhood. She didn't read the comments. She deposited the check, paid off her student loans, and donated $100,000 to a legal defense fund for veterans. Then she went back to work. The ER didn't care about settlements or headlines. It cared about whether you could stop the bleeding. Jessica Brennan's trial began on a cold Tuesday in October. Claire sat in the witness gallery, watching the jury selection, the opening statements, the parade of evidence. The DA was sharp, methodical, played the 911 call, showed the body cam footage, called witnesses who'd seen Brennan on the phone, narrating Claire's movements like a crime. Brennan's lawyer tried to spin it, said she genuinely believed something was wrong, that she'd acted in good faith. But the confession she'd given on TV destroyed that defense. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brennan sat motionless as the verdict was read. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Claire didn't attend. She'd seen enough. The night before sentencing, Claire got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Just her name on the envelope. Inside, a single page. Dear Ms. Whitmore, I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I need you to know that I see what I did. I see the harm. I see the consequences. And I'm sorry. I wish I could take it back. I can't. All I can do is live with it and try to be better. I hope someday you find peace. Jessica Brennan. Claire read it twice. Then she folded it, put it in a drawer, and closed it. Sentencing came. Brennan received 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and a permanent record. The judge's words were sharp, deliberate. You weaponized the police against an innocent woman because of your own prejudice and fear. That is unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated in this courtroom or this community. Claire watched the news coverage from her apartment. Brennan was led out in handcuffs, her mother crying in the gallery. It should have felt like justice. It felt like exhaustion. That night, Claire's phone rang. Colonel Trent. Congratulations, he said. For what? You won. Claire leaned back on the couch. Doesn't feel like winning. It never does. But you changed something. Policy reforms, accountability, a message sent. That's bigger than one case. Is it? Yeah, it is. Trent paused. The congressional hearing is still on the table if you're interested. Claire closed her eyes. I'll think about it. Take your time. But Claire? Yeah? You did good. He hung up. Claire sat alone in the quiet apartment. The cameras were still there. The panic button still by her bed. Reminders of everything that had happened. But the threats had stopped. Reardon was awaiting trial. Novak was blacklisted. Brennan was in jail, and Claire was still standing. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. She almost didn't open it. But she did. This isn't over. We're just getting started. Claire stared at the message. Then she took a screenshot, forwarded it to Wells and Voss, and blocked the number. She stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, someone was still trying to scare her, still trying to break her. But Claire had spent 18 months in a war zone keeping people alive under impossible conditions, and she'd just spent 3 months fighting a system designed to protect itself at any cost. If someone wanted to keep coming at her, let them. She wasn't going anywhere. Claire forwarded the screenshot to Wells at 6:43 a.m., then powered off her phone and went for a run. The city was just waking up, delivery trucks rumbling down empty streets, coffee shops flipping their signs to open, joggers nodding as they passed. The November air bit at her lungs, sharp and clean, and she pushed harder, feet pounding pavement in a rhythm that drowned out everything else. By the time she got back to the apartment, Wells had already responded. 3 messages. Got it. Running trace now. Number's a burner. Purchased with cash 2 days ago. We're escalating this to FBI. Patterns suggest organized effort. Claire stared at the messages, then deleted them. She showered, dressed in scrubs, and headed to Redwood General like it was any other Tuesday. Because it was. The ER was slammed within an hour of her shift starting. A kitchen fire with 3 burn victims, a motorcyclist who'd wrapped himself around a guardrail, and a steady stream of flu cases that had the waiting room overflowing. Claire moved through it mechanically, starting IVs, checking vitals, prepping patients for surgery. Dr. Ortiz found her during a rare lull, leaning against the nurse's station with a chart in one hand and cold coffee in the other. "You okay?" Ortiz asked. "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you look like you haven't slept in 3 days." Claire took a sip of the coffee. It tasted like burnt cardboard. "Got another threat last night." Ortiz's expression darkened. "Same person?" "Don't know. Burner phone." "Did you report it?" "Wells is handling it." Ortiz set down her chart. "Claire, you can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Pretending you're fine when you're clearly not." Claire looked up. "What do you want me to do? Fall apart? Take another week off? Let whoever's doing this win?" "I want you to acknowledge that this is taking a toll. Of course it's taking a toll. But I'm still here, still working, still fighting. What else is there?" Ortiz didn't answer. A code blue sounded from Trauma 2. Claire pushed off the desk and ran. The patient was a 60-year-old man, cardiac arrest, no pulse. Claire started compressions while Ortiz intubated. Another nurse prepped the defibrillator. The room filled with controlled chaos, shouted orders, beeping monitors, the rhythmic hiss of the ambu bag. 2 minutes, 4, 6. "Clear!" The shock hit. The man's body jerked. Still no pulse. Compressions resumed. Another shock. Nothing. Ortiz glanced at the clock. Time of death, 10:47. The room went quiet. Claire stepped back, peeling off her gloves. Her hands were shaking. She walked out before anyone could say anything. In the locker room, she sat on the bench and pressed her palms against her eyes until spots danced in the darkness. She'd lost patients before. Dozens of them. In Kandahar, she'd watched Marines bleed out despite everything she did. She knew the feeling, that hollow, helpless rage that came when skill and training weren't enough. But this felt different, like she was losing a battle she couldn't even see. Her phone buzzed, a call from Voss. Claire answered. "Yeah. We need to talk. Can you meet me?" "I'm working." "It's important." Claire checked the time. "I'm off at 6. Where?" "Your apartment. I'll bring food." Voss hung up. Claire sat alone in the locker room, staring at the floor until someone knocked. Ortiz poked her head in. "You coming back out?" "Yeah, give me a minute." Ortiz hesitated. "That patient?" "There was nothing else we could do." "I know." "Do you?" Claire stood. "I'm fine, Lena." "You keep saying that. Eventually you're going to have to believe it." Voss arrived at 6:30 with Thai food and a file folder thick enough to be a weapon. She spread everything out on Claire's coffee table. Printouts, photographs, timelines. "FBI traced the burner phone," Voss said, opening a container of pad Thai. "Purchased at a gas station in South Boston, cash transaction, but they pulled security footage." She handed Claire a grainy screenshot. A man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, face mostly obscured. "Can't ID him from this?" Claire said. "No, but look at the timestamp," Voss pointed. "Purchased the same day Brennan was sentenced." Claire set down the photo. "So this is retaliation, or escalation. We're still tracing connections, but the timing's too convenient." Voss pulled out another document. "There's more." Wells found a link between Riordan and a private security firm that's been sued 3 times for harassment and intimidation tactics. Guess who owns it? "Who?" "Riordan's brother-in-law. Guy named Vincent Cole, former cop, forced out after an excessive force scandal in 2018. He's been running this firm ever since, mostly doing enforcement work for police unions. Claire leaned back. So Reardon outsourced the threats. That's our theory, but proving it's harder. Cole's smart, keeps everything off the books, uses contractors, pays in cash. What about the bugs in my apartment? We're building a case, but it takes time. Cole's got resources. He's not going down easy. Claire picked at her food. So what do? We keep pushing. FBI's investigating. Wells is coordinating with local PD, and I'm filing a motion to compel discovery on Cole's firm. And in the meantime, you stay vigilant. Keep the security system active. Don't engage with anyone you don't know. Claire set down her fork. I'm tired, Rachel. I know. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of wondering who's watching, tired of fighting. Voss reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Then rest, take a break, let us handle this for a while. I can't. Why not? Because if I stop, they win. Voss pulled back, studied her. You know that's not true, right? You've already won. Novak's gone, Brennan's in jail, Reardon's awaiting trial. The city paid out. You changed policy. You did everything you set out to do. Then why doesn't it feel like enough? Voss didn't have an answer. They ate in silence. That night, Claire dreamed about Kandahar. She was back in the field hospital, knee-deep in blood, trying to stop a hemorrhage on a Marine who kept asking for his mom. The wound wouldn't close. No matter how much pressure she applied, the blood kept coming. She woke at 3 a.m., sheets soaked with sweat, heart hammering. The security camera app showed nothing. Empty hallway. Quiet street. She got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. She pulled up Vincent Cole's company, Sentinel Protection Services. The website was slick, professional. Photos of stern-looking men in tactical gear. Testimonials from satisfied clients. Services ranging from executive protection to reputation management. Claire clicked through the pages until she found the staff directory. Cole's photo stared back at her, buzz-cut, square jaw, the kind of face that looked carved from stone. His bio listed 20 years in law enforcement, multiple commendations, expert in crisis response. It didn't mention the excessive force scandal. Claire kept digging. News articles from 2018, a suspect beaten during an arrest, video footage that contradicted the police report. Cole suspended, then quietly forced to resign before formal charges could be filed. He'd landed on his feet, started Sentinel within 6 months. And now, he was coming after her. Claire closed the laptop. She'd spent weeks reacting to threats, to surveillance, to intimidation, always on the defensive. It was time to change that. The next morning, she called Colonel Trent. I want to testify, she said. Trent didn't sound surprised. At the congressional hearing? Yes. You sure? Completely. It's going to be intense. Senators asking hard questions, media attention. The whole thing's televised. I don't care. Trent was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll make the arrangements. Hearings in 3 weeks. I'll send you the prep materials. Thank you. Claire? Yeah? You're doing the right thing. She hung up and texted Voss. I'm testifying before Congress. Voss called immediately. When did you decide this? Just now. Why? Because I'm done reacting. I'm done letting them control the narrative. If they want to fight, I'll give them one. Voss exhaled slowly. Okay. Then let's make sure you're ready. The prep materials arrived 2 days later, a thick binder full of background information, sample questions, procedural guidelines. Claire read it cover to cover twice. The hearing was titled Accountability and Reform, Protecting Veterans from Law Enforcement Misconduct. She was one of 3 witnesses scheduled to testify. The others were a veteran advocacy lawyer and a police reform expert. Claire was the only one with first-hand experience. Voss helped her prepare, running mock Q&A sessions at her office. Senator asks you if you think all police are bad. How do you respond? Claire didn't hesitate. No, but the system that protects bad officers is broken. Senator says your case is an isolated incident, not representative of broader issues. Then why did it take a lawsuit, national media attention, and federal intervention to get accountability? If the system worked, Novak would have been fired after the first complaint. Voss nodded. Good. Keep it factual, keep it calm. Don't get defensive. I won't. And if they bring up the settlement money, I paid off my student loans and donated $100,000 to a legal defense fund for veterans. The rest is invested. I didn't do this for money. Voss leaned back. You're ready. 1 week before the hearing, Claire got a visitor at the hospital. She was restocking supplies in the ER when security called. Ms. Whitmore, there's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Catherine Brennan. Claire's hand stilled on the box of gauze. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's urgent. I don't care. Tell her to leave. A pause. She's asking for 5 minutes, that's all. Claire set down the supplies and walked to the lobby. Catherine Brennan stood near the entrance, hands clutched around her purse. She looked older than she'd sounded on the phone, mid-60s, gray hair, tired eyes. Claire stopped a few feet away. What do you want? I know you don't owe me anything, Catherine said, but I needed to see you, face to face. Why? But because my daughter's in jail because of a phone call she made in 30 seconds. And I know she deserves it. I know what she did was wrong, but she's my daughter, and I'm asking you, begging you, to consider speaking at her parole hearing. Claire stared at her. You want me to help her get out early. I want you to show mercy. The same mercy she showed me? Catherine flinched. I understand why you're angry. Do you? Do you understand what it's like to be handcuffed outside your own home? To have your life dissected in the media? To receive death threats because someone decided you didn't belong? No, I don't. Catherine's voice cracked. But I understand what it's like to watch your child suffer. And I'm asking you, parent to parent, I'm not a parent. Then human to human, please. Just consider it. Claire's jaw tightened. Your daughter made a choice. She saw me and decided I was a threat. Not because I did anything wrong. Because of what I looked like. And now she's facing consequences. That's not cruelty. That's accountability. I know, but there's no but. She called the police on me for existing. And if I hadn't had the resources, the support, the military record to back me up, I'd be the one with a record. I'd be the one who lost everything. Your daughter's sitting in county jail for 6 months. I've been fighting for my life for 3. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. So am I. Claire turned and walked away. Behind her, Catherine's quiet sobs echoed through the lobby. Claire didn't look back. The congressional hearing was held in a packed chamber, rows of seats filled with journalists, activists, veterans, and observers. Cameras lined the walls. Senators sat at an elevated bench, looking down at the witness table. Claire sat between the advocacy lawyer and the reform expert, hands folded in her lap, mic clipped to her collar. The chairman, a white-haired senator from Massachusetts, called the session to order. Today we examine the intersection of law enforcement accountability and the treatment of our nation's veterans. We've heard too many stories of men and women who served this country with honor, only to be treated as threats when they return home. Ms. Whitmore's case is a stark example of what happens when bias, poor training, and lack of oversight converge. He nodded at Claire. Ms. Whitmore, thank you for being here. Please proceed with your statement. Claire leaned forward, voice steady. I'm a registered nurse. I work in an emergency department. I've saved lives. I've held hands. I've told families their loved ones didn't make it. I've done this job for 6 years, 4 at Redwood General, 2 in Portland before that. Before that, I was a combat medic in Afghanistan. I spent 18 months keeping Marines alive under fire. She paused, met the chairman's eyes. On April 12th of this year, I came home from a double shift and was arrested outside my own apartment. An officer put handcuffs on me because a neighbor called 911 and reported me as suspicious. Not because I was breaking in, not because I was armed, but because she didn't recognize me, and because, in her mind, I didn't look like someone who belonged there. A few senators shifted in their seats. I showed my ID, I showed my key card, I explained where I worked. None of it mattered. The officer decided I was lying. He decided my credentials were fake. He decided I was a threat. And I spent 4 hours in a holding cell while they verified what I'd been telling them from the start, that I lived there. Claire's voice didn't waver. Officer Derek Novak had 3 prior complaints for racial profiling, all dismissed. No disciplinary action, no retraining, no consequences. And because no one held him accountable before, he felt comfortable doing it again. To me. She looked directly at the cameras. I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because this shouldn't have happened. And it keeps happening to veterans, to people of color, to anyone who doesn't fit someone else's idea of what belongs. We talk about supporting those who serve, about honoring their sacrifice. But when they come home and try to live normal lives, we treat them like criminals. A senator from Texas leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, do you believe Officer Novak acted out of malice or poor judgment?
I believe he acted out of bias. Whether that's malice or poor judgment doesn't matter to me. The result was the same. And you believe the department failed to address that bias? I know they did. 3 complaints, 3 dismissals. That's not failure, that's a choice. Another senator, a woman from California, spoke next. What reforms do you believe would prevent this from happening again?
Independent oversight for misconduct complaints. Mandatory bias training that's actually enforced, not just checked off on a form. A database that tracks officers with patterns of abuse so they can't just move to another department. And consequences. Real ones. Not paid leave, not quiet resignations. Termination. Criminal charges when warranted.
A senator from Florida jumped in. Ms. Whitmore, you received a substantial settlement from the city. Some might argue you've been compensated for your trouble. Why continue pushing for reforms?
Claire met his eyes without blinking. Because money doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't prevent it from happening to someone else. I could have taken that check and disappeared. But then what? Novak moves to another city, does the same thing to another veteran who doesn't have my resources. Brennan keeps calling the police on people who make her uncomfortable. Reardon keeps intimidating witnesses. The cycle continues. I didn't fight this hard to just cash out and walk away. The senator leaned back, apparently satisfied. Another voice, this time from a younger senator from New York. You mentioned witness intimidation. Can you elaborate on what you experienced during this process? Claire took a breath. My apartment was bugged. 3 audio surveillance devices planted while I was at work. I received threatening phone calls from burner phones. Notes slipped under my door telling me to drop the case. Someone followed me, photographed me, tried to scare me into silence. And all of that was orchestrated by Thomas Riordan, a police union representative working with a private security firm run by another former cop with a history of misconduct. The chamber went silent.
They wanted me to be afraid, to give up, to accept the narrative that I was overreacting, that I was making this a bigger deal than it needed to be. But I'd been through worse, way worse, and I wasn't going to let them win.
The hearing lasted 3 hours. Senators asked about her military deployments, her medical training, the specifics of the arrest, the settlement negotiations, the ongoing prosecution of Cole and Reardon. Claire answered every question with precision, never wavering, never getting defensive. When it was over, the chairman thanked her for her testimony and courage. Ms. Whitmore, your service to this nation didn't end when you took off the uniform. What you've done here, holding a broken system accountable, that's service too. Thank you. Claire nodded, but didn't smile. Outside the chamber, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, voices overlapping. Miss Whitmore, how do you feel after testifying? Do you think your testimony will lead to real change? What do you say to critics who claim you're profiting off this case? Voss stepped in front of her, arms out. Ms. Whitmore has no further comment at this time. Thank you. They pushed through to a waiting car. Colonel Trent was inside along with Agent Wells. You crushed it, Wells said. Claire leaned back against the seat, closed her eyes. I just want to go home. Soon, Trent said. But first, there's something you need to see. He handed her a tablet. The screen showed a live news feed. The chyron read, Breaking. Vincent Cole arrested on federal charges. Claire sat up. The footage showed FBI agents escorting Cole out of the Sentinel Protection Services office in handcuffs. His face was stone, but his eyes betrayed something else. Fear. Wells leaned forward. We raided his office 2 hours ago. Found everything. Financial records showing payments to the contractors who bugged your apartment. Emails coordinating the harassment campaign. Phone logs tying him directly to the threats. He's done. Claire stared at the screen, watching Cole being loaded into a federal vehicle. How long? She asked. 20 years minimum. Probably more once we finish going through everything. Claire handed back the tablet. Good. They drove in silence. 2 days after the hearing, Vincent Cole's lawyer reached out to Voss with a plea deal offer. Cole would plead guilty to all charges in exchange for 18 years instead of 25. Voss called Claire immediately. "What do you think?" Voss asked. Claire didn't hesitate. "No deal. Let him go to trial." "Claire, 18 years is a long time. He'll be 70 when he gets out. I don't care. He terrorized me for months, planted bugs in my home, sent people to follow me, made me feel unsafe in my own life. He doesn't get to negotiate his way out of that." Voss was quiet for a moment. "Okay, I'll tell them no. Thank you." Cole's trial was scheduled for February. The prosecution had everything they needed: documentation, recordings, testimony from the contractors Cole had hired. It was airtight. But Claire didn't care about the trial anymore. She cared about moving forward. In December, Claire took 2 weeks off work and drove to the coast again. Same cabin, same ocean, same silence. This time, she didn't pace, didn't check her phone obsessively, didn't cry. She just existed. She walked the beach every morning, watching the waves crash against the rocks. She read 3 books cover to cover. She cooked actual meals instead of microwaving leftovers. And slowly, something inside her started to shift. Not healing. Not yet. But the beginning of it. On her last night at the cabin, she sat on the porch with a cup of tea and watched the sunset. Her phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Ortiz. "Hope you're resting. ER's a disaster without you. Come back soon." Claire smiled and typed back, "Miss you too." Another text came through, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Whitmore, my name is Alicia Ross. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I was pulled over last week and illegally searched. I saw your testimony and I want to know, how do I fight back?" Claire stared at the message. Then she called the number. A woman answered, voice shaking. "Hello? Alicia, this is Claire Whitmore. You texted me." "Oh my God, I didn't think you'd actually call." "Tell me what happened." Alicia told her story. Pulled over for a broken taillight that wasn't broken. Officer demanded to search the car. Alicia refused. Officer searched anyway, tore apart her vehicle, found nothing, left her on the side of the road with her belongings scattered everywhere. "Did you file a complaint?" Claire asked. "I tried. The department said the officer followed protocol." "Do you have dashcam footage?" "No. But there were witnesses." Other drivers stopped. Claire grabbed a pen. "Okay, here's what you're going to do. First, get statements from those witnesses. Names, contact info, everything they saw. Second, file a formal complaint in writing, email and certified mail so there's a record. Third, contact the ACLU. They handle cases like this. And fourth," she paused. "Fourth, call me back if you need help navigating any of it. You're not alone in this." Alicia's voice cracked. "Thank you. I didn't know where else to turn." "You did the right thing reaching out. Now let's make sure they don't get away with it." They talked for another hour. By the time Claire hung up, the sun had fully set. She sat in the darkness staring at her phone, and then she opened her laptop and started drafting an email to Colonel Trent. "I want to start something. A legal advocacy network for veterans facing law enforcement misconduct. Resources, referrals, support, people who can help them fight back when the system fails them. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I know it's needed. Let me know if the DoD can help make this happen." She sent it before she could second-guess herself. Trent responded within 20 minutes. "Let's build it. I'll connect you with the right people. This is exactly what we need." Claire closed the laptop and walked out onto the beach. The waves crashed in the darkness, steady and relentless. She breathed in the salt air and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. 3 months later, the Claire Whitmore Veterans Advocacy Project officially launched. It wasn't big, just a small nonprofit operating out of a rented office with a staff of 3. But it was real, and it was needed. Veterans from across the country started calling. Stories like Claire's, stories worse than Claire's. Police brutality, illegal searches, wrongful arrests, veterans treated like threats instead of citizens. The project connected them with lawyers, coordinated with civil rights organizations, tracked patterns of misconduct across departments. Within 6 months, they'd helped file 18 lawsuits. Within a year, they'd won policy changes in 12 cities. Claire still worked at Redwood General, still pulled her 12-hour shifts, still saved lives in the controlled chaos of the ER. But now, when she came home, she had something beyond exhaustion. She had purpose. Vincent Cole's trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury convicted him on all counts after deliberating for less than 4 hours. The judge sentenced him to 23 years in federal prison. Claire attended the sentencing, sat in the gallery, and watched Cole's face as the judge read the verdict. He didn't look defiant anymore. He looked broken. As the marshals led him away, he glanced back at Claire. Their eyes met for just a second. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. She just stared until he disappeared through the door. Voss touched her arm. "You okay?" "Yeah, I am." Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. This time, Claire didn't run. She stood at the microphone and spoke. "Vincent Cole spent months trying to intimidate me into silence. He failed. Thomas Reardon tried to bury my case through fear and harassment. He failed. Derek Novak thought he could treat me like a criminal and face no consequences. He was wrong. And Jessica Brennan believed she could weaponize the police against me without accountability. She learned otherwise." Claire looked directly into the cameras. "This case was never just about me. It was about every veteran who's been treated like a threat instead of a citizen. Every person who's been profiled, harassed, or violated by people who swore to protect them. Every individual who's been told to stay quiet, accept injustice, and move on." She paused. "I'm here to say, don't stay quiet. Don't accept it. And don't move on until you've held them accountable. Because silence protects the people who harm us. And we're done being silent." The questions came fast. "What's next for you? Are you satisfied with the outcome? Do you have a message for other veterans facing similar situations?" Claire answered each one calmly, clearly, without hesitation. When it was over, she walked away from the cameras and got into Voss's car. "That was perfect," Voss said. Claire shrugged. "It was the truth. Still, you've come a long way from the woman who just wanted this to go away." Claire looked out the window at the city passing by. "I'm not that woman anymore." "No, you're not." 6 months later, Claire stood at a podium in front of 400 people. The annual gala for the Veterans Advocacy Project. She'd been dreading this speech for weeks, but as she looked out at the crowd, veterans, lawyers, activists, donors, journalists, she felt steady. 2 years ago, she began, I was handcuffed outside my own apartment. I was humiliated, violated, treated like a criminal for the crime of existing while black in my own building. The room was silent. I could have taken the settlement and walked away. No one would have blamed me. But I didn't. Because I knew that if I stayed silent, it would happen again. To someone else. Someone who didn't have the resources or the support or the stubborn refusal to let it slide. A few people laughed softly. This project exists because silence doesn't protect us. It protects the people who harm us. And we're done with that. In the past year, we've helped 43 veterans file civil rights complaints. We've secured policy changes in 17 cities. We've connected hundreds of people with legal resources they didn't know existed. And we're just getting started. The applause was deafening. Claire waited for it to die down. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to accept injustice. And if that's all it takes, if standing up when it would be easier to sit down is heroic, then every single person in this room is a hero too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this work. And thank you for proving that we're stronger together than we ever could be alone. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. After the gala, Claire stood outside in the cold, watching people leave. Dr. Ortiz found her. Hell of a speech. Thanks. You okay? Claire smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. Yeah, I really am. Ortiz squeezed her shoulder. Good, because the ER needs you back tomorrow. We've got 3 nurses out with the flu. Wouldn't miss it. Ortiz walked away, leaving Claire alone under the streetlights. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her chest tightened for just a second. Old habit, old fear. Then she opened it. Miss Whitmore, my name is Marcus. I'm an Army veteran. I was fired from my job after reporting sexual harassment. I don't know where to turn. Can you help? Claire smiled and typed back, Yes, call this number tomorrow morning. We'll figure this out together. She pocketed the phone and looked up at the night sky.
Somewhere out there, someone was fighting the same fight she'd fought, feeling the same exhaustion, the same anger, the same desperate hope that someone would say, "You're not alone." And because of what she'd built, they didn't have to be. Claire Whitmore had been handcuffed, threatened, surveilled, and dragged through months of legal hell. But she hadn't broken. She'd built something instead. Not just a lawsuit, not just a settlement, not just policy changes. She'd built a network of support for people who needed it most. She'd turned her pain into power, and she'd used that power to make sure no one else had to fight alone. That was the real victory. Not the convictions or the money or the reforms. The knowledge that she'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into something that mattered, something that would outlast her, something that would help people she'd never meet. Claire walked to her car, got in, and drove home. The apartment didn't feel haunted anymore. The cameras were just tools now, not reminders of fear. The panic button stayed unused. She made tea, sat on the couch, and opened her laptop. 37 new emails from veterans requesting help. She started reading, because this was her life now. Not running from threats, not hiding from cameras, not waiting for the next crisis. Building, helping, fighting, for people who deserved better, for a system that needed changing, for a world where no one had to prove they belonged in their own home. Claire Whitmore had learned something in those 18 months in Kandahar that served her well in the fight that followed. The people who survive aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get back up. Every single time, no matter how hard the hit, no matter how long the fight, no matter what. And as she answered those emails one by one, connecting veterans with lawyers and resources and hope, Claire knew one thing for certain. She wasn't done standing, not even close, because some fights were worth having, some battles were worth fighting. And some people, the ones who'd been knocked down, counted out, told to stay quiet, deserved someone in their corner who refused to give up. Claire Whitmore was that person now, and she'd never felt more alive.